Welcome back to another episode of Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. As always, I'm your host, Dean Simon, and before we get into everything, please make sure to leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe. We are still on the road to 2,000 subscribers, so if that's a journey that you feel compelled to join, please consider pressing that big red subscribe button down below, and also turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future Milwaukee Bucks updates. All right, so before we get into everything, no, this is not Dean's younger brother or cousin. Just decided to go with the full clean shave, get a little bit of a reset there with the facial hair. It might be jarring to some. It's still jarring to me. I don't know how I can go from looking 23 to 13 in the matter of 5 minutes, but it is possible. But regardless, we are going to talk about some Milwaukee Bucks basketball and a cool little matchup on the way against the Charlotte Hornets and a few rookie stars in Con Knippel and Ryan Kalkbrenner, as well as Miles Bridges, who's basically been putting the team on his back to start this year, and not in the way of, it's just out of necessity because Brandon Miller went down early with a pretty decent injury, I believe a wrist injury that he um, did he need surgery on it? I'm pretty sure he did. And then LaMelo Ball has been out with injuries still, as that's become a running trend over the past couple of years since his 2022 All Star campaign. But with those guys out, it's been Con Knippel and Liam McNeely as well, another rookie that's been pretty impressive so far of the three for Charlotte that have, caught the attention of the rest of the NBA world, and they should catch the attention of the Milwaukee Bucks when they go and visit the Hornets. And it's going to be a really cool matchup just in the aspect of Miles Turner versus Ryan Kalkbrenner, as I mentioned in the last episode, too. Pretty notorious shot blockers. Of course, Ryan Kalkbrenner's had a lot less experience at the NBA level than Miles has, but he's already averaging over 2.5 blocks a game. Miles Turner, of course, a two-time block champion, so that's going to be a really fun matchup there in the low post and just underneath the basket as well, with Giannis roaming around the paint. Also, Miles Bridges. It's going to be interesting to see who the Bucks throw at him, and we're going to talk about matchups in a second for this game specifically. But with Miles Bridges, it's going to be really, really tough because he can shoot the ball, but he also has this really, really huge frame. He's very strong and obviously one of the most athletic, pure athletes in the NBA from a dunking perspective too. He's just overall a very skilled offensive player, but it's just his frame that's going to be really difficult for the Bucks to guard because now, of course, they're down Torian Prince, who, it's not like he's this stalwart defensively, but I feel like his frame would have matched up a little bit better with Miles Bridges in this kind of matchup. But most likely it's probably going to be, the Gary Trents of the world going against Miles. Also, I think maybe, and this is going to also be going into another segment in the future, maybe Amir Coffey could be a good matchup for Miles Bridges. But we're going to just stick on one specific matchup that I think has the potential to be a little bit of a problem for the Milwaukee Bucks, and specifically for their backcourt of Cole Anthony and AJ Green, and maybe not Ryan Rollins because he's, obviously a little more sound on that end. But in terms of these guys with a little bit lacking stature, maybe Con Knippel is going to present a lot of matchup problems because he also has a rock solid frame, but he's also super skilled. He can shoot the ball, he can get to the rim when necessary, has a pretty strong handle. He's just kind of like the all around bring the lunchbox to the lunch pail to work type of guy. Just that hard worker type of guy. And Con Knippel, it's just he's going to be a very hard kind of like in between player to guard, and specifically for guys that are a little bit smaller, like the Cole Anthonys and the AJ Greens. I'm kind of fearful, honestly, against Con Knippel because he's proving not to be just any regular rookie. He's putting up near 20-point triple doubles. He's doing everything that's asked of him, and he's setting records for 3-point shooting as well as a rookie. So just same as Miles Bridges, like his body is his overall skill set. It's going to be creating a lot of problems for this Milwaukee Bucks defense, at least out on the perimeter. And that's why I feel like maybe Gary Trent Jr. might not get the Miles Bridges assignment. Maybe that'll go to Con Knippel, and then maybe Cole Anthony will be stuck with guys like the Colin Sextons of the world, and Gary Trent Jr. might might be on Con Knippel. But that's just from a stature perspective. It really might not make all that difference because of course Ryan Rollins is going to be there too to guard Con Knippel. And he's going to make life hard on him as he does with every talented point guard in the NBA, it seems. But yeah, that's something that I'm looking forward to, and I'm really kind of excited to see how the Bucks deal with that because of course, the perimeter defense has been great some games, lacking in others, and especially in the kind of like in between areas of the floor, I feel like sometimes, and where a guy like Con Knippel can hurt you. it might be a little bit tougher to stick with him in those aspects because he's very, very crafty, kind of like wise beyond his years type of player. So I'm excited to see how the Bucks kind of counter that. And one way I feel like they could, maybe not from a defensive perspective, but something that I've been thinking of recently is that while Amir Coffey has appeared in all 11 games for the Milwaukee Bucks this year, and he hasn't really been able to make a major impact, if any at all, on either end of the floor. I was thinking that maybe it's just got to do with nerves, being in a new environment under, a new head coach in Doc Rivers, who, um, just being around guys like Giannis and Miles Turner and kind of having that pressure to really contribute off the bench. It seems like Amir Coffey just hasn't been himself, and we know if you watch the tape from last year with the Clippers that Amir Coffey is a very talented and skilled offensive player who my biggest thing with him is I love how he can attack closeouts. He was a 40% three-point shooter, but he could also attack closeouts great and pull up for a mid-range jumper, get all the way to the rim. He just overall has a lot of skill offensively. And I feel like maybe it's in the Bucks' best interests to kind of just let him off the hook and just let him do him from a, kind of a shot attempts perspective, kind of let plays go to him sometimes. Maybe if he gets the ball in the corner, he throws a jab step. Maybe he's allowed to throw up a three every once in a while with a hand in his face. Because I feel like there just needs to be another level for him to get to in terms of comfortability with this team, and which he just clearly hasn't reached yet. It feels like he's still trying to like grasp at ways to make an impact, and he just kind of looks out of place sometimes, or that he isn't really fully confident in himself that he can make the kinds of contributions necessary to keep the Bucks going on this pace and keep the Bucks as a winning team. And it's kind of frustrating for me because this is a guy that I was so high on throughout this summer. I've said it countless times on the show that, regardless of who picked him up this past summer, I thought it was going to be one of, if not the most underrated signing of the offseason. Then, of course, he heads to the Milwaukee Bucks, and I couldn't have been more excited. So now to see him kind of struggling, only averaging a point and a half, maybe half of an assist, shooting 40% from the field, 10 or 15% from three through 11 games. Granted, only gets about 10 minutes of run. It kind of hits me in a certain spot because this is a guy that I really thought would make a huge impact once he got those minutes, once he got that time to shine. And, a guy that I campaigned for to just outright make the team throughout training camp. I was one of those guys in the camp of, why is he even trying out for the team? Why was he even signed on a training camp deal? He should be a guaranteed roster spot type of player. But so far, he hasn't really proved it necessarily. And I feel like it's all a mental thing to a degree. And that's why I'm thinking maybe the Bucks just kind of let him go crazy. Maybe the Bucks just give him a little bit more responsibility and tell him to take more shots and whatever, because maybe this is a thing that he just needs to shoot his way out of. Similar to the guy that we're going to talk about next, and Kyle Kuzma coming off the bench and turning into a bench superstar for the Milwaukee Bucks. Maybe it's a similar thing with Amir Coffey than it was with Kuz, that, he needs to shoot his way out of it, but maybe it's that he needs to take certain types of shots more. Like with Kyle Kuzma, we've talked endlessly about how he's completely changed his shot diet for the most part with regard to kind of just jacking up those random threes on the wings or in the corners. And instead, he's just become so much more aggressive, and we've seen how it's all turned out right for him when he's putting his head down and attacking the basket. It seems like anytime he gets within 3 to 5 feet, a shot is going in off the glass and is good. He's just become an unstoppable force driving to the rim for the Milwaukee Bucks, and he was a huge, maybe the reason why the Bucks were able to stay in that game against the Dallas Mavericks throughout the end of the first half and the majority of the third quarter, because he just could not be stopped going to the rim. Maybe Amir Coffey is in a similar position as well, but besides Amir Coffey, I've been seeing a lot of comments and people just all over the kind of NBA space saying that, since Kyle Kuzma has been so impressive recently coming off the bench, maybe he should earn that starting spot back. But I say no. I say no because the whole point, at least to me, because of course I'm not in the group that's sitting on the sidelines in the coaching staff with Doc Rivers. I feel like the whole point of Kyle Kuzma assuming a little bit of a lesser role was to get him into more of a rhythm once he checks into the game and he can kind of, go against other teams' bench units, even though we know that he, strictly is not a bench caliber type of player. Like he can kind of come in and be that like super sixth man type of guy, like how um, Bobby Portis is when he's actually on his game. So Kuz has certainly found that rhythm and he's found that groove. And now, once he comes in off the bench and he starts hot, it then bleeds into him, performing effectively once the starters come in and he's next to Giannis and he's next to Miles Turner. Now he just has turned into a positive producer all around. And the only way that that's going to continue to me, not saying that he can't play well as a starter and that it's impossible, but he's played so well off the bench for you. Why change it? Why mess with this game plan and mess with his rhythm when it is so clearly worked out perfectly for the Bucks in this aspect? Because this is, before I was even saying, oh my gosh, it's night and day with Kyle Kuzma because he's putting up, 7 points on 3 of 6 shooting from the field a couple of games ago. But now it's night and, the brightest day imaginable when he's putting up 26 off the bench and leading the Bucks to a win in a really close and hotly contested game. So Kuz should stay on the bench, flat out. That's the only thing that I really have to say on this matter is that Kuz has been phenomenal. There's no way around it. And as a guy that was kind of campaigning for his resurgence, I was like, you know, I really just couldn't be happier. But Kuz should stay on the bench. There's no reason to bring him back off the bench just to, kind of accelerate this thing of like, oh man, now he's found his groove. Now he needs to be the starter. The Bucks are 7-4, not the best record in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but you got to keep the good things rolling when you have something like Kyle Kuzma giving you 20 or 18 off the bench on good shooting. If that's a consistent thing that can continue, you don't mess with it. You just keep him on the bench and that's it. But anyways, that'll be it for me today. Thank you very much for tuning into another episode of Bucks Latest presented by FanArch. Once again, I've been Dean Simon, and before you go, please leave that like, leave that comment down below, and subscribe. Still on the road to 2,000 subs, so if you want to join along, please do so, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future Milwaukee Bucks updates. All right, I will see you guys in the next one. Go Bucks.